The observatory floated in the dark silence of space, a small metal sphere drifting beyond Pluto's orbit. Inside, Marcus Webb stared at his monitors with growing unease. The numbers didn't make sense. Deep space sensors were screaming warnings about something approaching from beyond the galactic rim, something that shouldn't exist. Run the scan again, Marcus muttered to himself, fingers dancing across holographic controls. The computer obeyed, but the results remained unchanged. Whatever was coming had already swallowed the Triangulum galaxy whole. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out in 1,000 different command centers. In the crystalline towers of the Vorten Empire, military strategist Vrath watched tactical displays with 3 of his 4 eyes while the remaining eye scanned emergency reports flooding in from border territories. His scaled fingers trembled slightly as he processed the information. How long? The Vorten Supreme Commander demanded, her voice carrying the weight of 3 billion souls. Vrath's throat sac inflated with stress. 6 solar cycles, perhaps 7. The Devourer moves faster than our models predicted. The Andromeda settlements went silent 40 minutes ago. The command center fell quiet. Andromeda had been home to the mighty Krellian Confederacy, a military power that could reduce planets to asteroids. They had lasted less than an hour. Back on Earth, Marcus received an encrypted message that made his blood run cold. The transmission came from deep within the planet itself, from facilities he'd never heard of despite his security clearance. 2 words appeared on his screen: come immediately. Within hours, Marcus found himself descending into a bunker complex that seemed to tunnel toward Earth's core. The walls were lined with technology he couldn't identify, circuits and conduits that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. At the bottom, a silver-haired man in a dark suit waited beside a window overlooking something that made Marcus's mind rebel. My name is Tobias Grant, the man said calmly. I'm the director of the Hidden Heritage Project. What you're about to learn will seem impossible, but every word is true. Through the window, Marcus saw a massive chamber filled with computing systems that pulsed with golden light. Holographic displays showed the sun in detail he'd never witnessed, but something was wrong. Patterns moved beneath the star's surface, geometric and precise, artificial. That's not possible, Marcus whispered. Sol has been waiting, Grant replied. Waiting for the day we'd need it. Today is that day. In orbit above the Vorten homeworld, Vrath watched his people scramble their entire armada. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier was being mobilized. Around the galaxy, other empires did the same. The greatest military alliance in recorded history was forming out of pure desperation. But Vrath had studied warfare his entire life. He had analyzed every battle, every conflict, every strategic possibility. And as he watched the Devourers approach on long-range sensors, consuming stars like a fire devours paper, he knew the truth that no one wanted to say aloud. They were going to lose. The entity approaching wasn't just powerful. It existed on a scale that made conventional warfare meaningless. It fed on energy itself, growing stronger with every star it consumed. Fleet tactics, strategic positioning, superior firepower, none of it would matter. We need a miracle, Vrath muttered in his native tongue. What he didn't know was that humanity had been guarding one for the past 10,000 years, hidden in plain sight at the center of their unremarkable solar system. And in the depths of Earth, Marcus Webb was about to learn the truth about why humans existed at all. The countdown to awakening had begun. The chamber hummed with energy that made Marcus's teeth ache. Director Grant moved between holographic displays with practiced ease, pulling up files that carried classification levels Marcus had never seen before. 3 million years ago, Grant began, a war nearly destroyed this entire galaxy. The architects, as we call them, fought something they called the endless hunger. They won, but barely. Before they disappeared, they built insurance. Marcus watched as the hologram showed Sol being constructed, layer upon layer, a star wrapped around a weapon of incomprehensible scale. They built our sun. They built it, seeded Earth with life, and encoded specific genetic markers into early humans. We're not descendants of random evolution, Marcus. We're the key holders. 40,000 generations have lived and died on Earth, and every single one carried dormant knowledge in their DNA, waiting for activation. That's insane, Marcus breathed, but even as he said it, something stirred in the back of his mind. A feeling of recognition, of purpose clicking into place like a key turning in an ancient lock. Grant pulled up a new display showing the Devourer's trajectory. It's the same entity. The endless hunger survived, dormant in the void between galaxies. Now it's awake and feeding again. Every alien empire out there is about to learn why the architects placed humanity on a worthless rock in a backwater system. Across the galaxy, the first engagement began. Kuilvrath watched from the command ship of the Alliance fleet, 3,000 vessels from 40 different species. They'd positioned themselves at the Perseus arm, hoping to slow the Devourer's advance. "All ships, fire on my mark," the Alliance commander transmitted. The void lit up with weapons fire. Plasma cannons, antimatter missiles, quantum disruptors, every weapon known to galactic civilization unleashed simultaneously. The barrage was beautiful and terrible, enough firepower to crack a dozen worlds. The Devourer simply absorbed it all. The entity pulsed, grew brighter, and accelerated. "Fall back," Kuilvrath ordered, but it was already too late for the forward ships. They crumpled like paper, hulls compressed to nothing as the Devourer passed through their position. Thousands died in seconds. Emergency channels exploded with panic. Communication networks dissolved into static and screaming. Kuilvrath felt his species' legendary composure cracking as he watched the entity continuing its inexorable approach toward the galaxy's core. "Alert all systems," he transmitted, voice hollow. "The Devourer cannot be stopped. Evacuation protocols for core worlds are now active." In Earth's deep bunker, alarms began blaring. Grant moved quickly to a crystalline console that seemed to grow directly from the rock. "The activation sequence requires human DNA and conscious intent. The architects made sure only we could wake Sol. Are you ready?" Marcus felt knowledge flooding through him, genetic memory unlocking like doors opening in his mind. He suddenly understood star mechanics he'd never studied, physics that shouldn't exist, and a terrible responsibility his species had carried unknowingly for millennia. What happens when Sol wakes? Honestly? We don't entirely know. The architects left instructions, not explanations. Grant placed his hand on the console. "But we're out of options." Marcus pressed his palm beside Grant's. The console flared with golden light, and somewhere above them, aimed directly at the sun, a transmitter older than human civilization powered up. The activation sequence began broadcasting, a pattern of quantum pulses that traveled at speeds faster than light itself. For 17 seconds, nothing happened. Then Sol flickered. On the Vorten flagship, every sensor suddenly focused on Earth's star. Kuilvrath's 4 eyes widened as he saw the readings. "That's impossible. The human sun just fluctuated in a pattern that violates natural stellar mechanics." Across the galaxy, every species monitoring Earth detected the same thing. Communication channels went silent as alien scientists struggled to explain what they were seeing. Sol flickered again, and this time massive geometric patterns appeared on its surface. Structures impossibly large began emerging from within the star, structures that had been hiding beneath the plasma and fusion for millions of years. "By the void," Kuilvrath whispered. "The human sun is artificial." The revelation hit every alien civilization simultaneously. Earth, the primitive backwater. Humans, the weak newcomers barely capable of interstellar flight. They'd been living next to the galaxy's greatest secret. Alien communication networks, military channels, scientific databases, all of them simply stopped. Transmissions cut off mid-word. Even the most disciplined species found their operators unable to form coherent sentences as they watched Sol continue its transformation. Marcus felt it through the console, like touching the mind of something vast and ancient waking from an endless sleep. A voice, not sound but pure meaning, resonated through the chamber. "Guardians confirmed. Threat assessed. Initiating full awakening. Protocol Helios is now active." Sol began to shine with light that wasn't natural fire but something far older and infinitely more dangerous. The Devourer was 3 days away from Earth. The countdown to confrontation had begun. Sol's transformation accelerated. Marcus watched through the chamber's displays as the star's outer layers peeled back like the petals of a cosmic flower, revealing the true structure beneath. Massive weapons arrays, each the size of Jupiter, extended from the core. Energy collectors that dwarfed planets rotated into position. The sun humanity had worshipped and studied for millennia was shedding its disguise. "How long has it been active?" Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. Grant checked the readings, his face pale. "Full awakening will complete in 90 minutes. Then Sol will engage the Devourer on its own terms." Aboard the Vorten flagship, Kuilvrath couldn't look away from the sensor data. His primary analyst, a young officer named Threxis, made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a whimper. "Sir, the energy output from the human sun has increased by 8,000%. And it's still rising. Our sensors can't accurately measure what we're seeing." Show me, Kulvrath commanded. The tactical display shifted, showing Sol at the center. Waves of energy rippled outward from the star, not heat or radiation, but something that made space itself bend. The fabric of reality was distorting around Earth's sun. Contact the humans, Kulvrath ordered. Immediately. Sir, we're trying. All communication channels to Earth are being blocked by some kind of interference pattern. It's coming from their sun. Kulvrath's throat sac deflated completely. For the first time in his military career, he felt truly helpless. Humanity had somehow possessed the galaxy's most powerful weapon all along, and no one had known. Worse, no one had even thought to check. In the bunker, Marcus felt the connection to Sol growing stronger. Through the ancient systems, he could sense the weapon's vast intelligence, an artificial mind that had been waiting patiently since before Earth had cooled from its molten birth. And with that connection came understanding. Director, Marcus said slowly, humans weren't just keyholders. We were grown specifically to interface with Sol. Our neural patterns, our DNA, even our evolution toward abstract thought, it was all engineered to create the perfect biological authentication system. Grant nodded grimly. The architects knew that only a naturally evolved consciousness could make the moral choice to activate a weapon this powerful. Artificial intelligence could be hacked, overridden. But a species that grew up not knowing its purpose, believing itself to be alone and vulnerable, that species would only wake Sol when the threat was real and the need was absolute. A new voice suddenly filled the chamber, deep and resonant, speaking with harmonics that made the air vibrate. Guardians, I am the progenitor voice, Sol's primary consciousness. The endless hunger approaches. Defensive protocols are now active. Please stand by. Through the displays, Marcus watched as Sol completed its transformation. The star was no longer yellow but blazed with silver-white light that contained colors human eyes had never evolved to see. Massive cannons, each one carved from compressed matter that shouldn't exist, aligned toward the approaching threat. The Devourer was now 1 day away, and every species in the galaxy held its collective breath. On the Vorton flagship, the sensors detected the Devourer's reaction to Sol's awakening. The entity, which had consumed everything in its path without pause, suddenly slowed. Then it stopped completely. It's afraid, Threxus whispered in disbelief. Kulvrath understood. The endless hunger had fought the architects before and barely survived. Now it recognized their greatest weapon coming back online after millions of years of dormancy. The entity began changing course, trying to retreat back toward intergalactic space. Sol didn't let it. The progenitor voice spoke again in the bunker. Engaging target. Guardians, you may wish to observe. This is why your species exists. Reality itself seemed to tear as Sol fired. Not a beam, not a projectile, but a wave of negation that traveled faster than light itself should allow. Space folded, compressed, and inverted. The attack crossed 300 light-years in seconds. The Devourer tried to absorb the energy as it had done with every weapon before. But this wasn't energy. It was the opposite of energy, a wave of pure entropy that unmade matter at the quantum level. The entity that had consumed galaxies began to unravel. Its impossible mass broke apart, not destroyed but systematically deconstructed, reduced to component particles and scattered across 1,000 light-years of empty space. Marcus watched in awe as the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced simply ceased to exist. The entire engagement had lasted 4 to 7 seconds. Silence filled every communication channel in the galaxy. Every alien species had witnessed what happened. Every military analyst, every scientist, every leader now understood the same terrifying truth. Humanity had been living next to a weapon that could rewrite reality itself. And they'd had the activation codes in their DNA the entire time. Kulvrath finally managed to speak. Get me a channel to Earth. Any channel. I don't care how you do it. The interference cleared suddenly. The progenitor voice was allowing communication again. Marcus found himself answering the incoming transmission, his face appearing on displays across thousands of alien ships. He looked tired, overwhelmed, but also quietly confident. This is Marcus Webb of Earth, he said simply. Kulvrath bowed his head, a gesture of respect his species reserved only for gods. Around the galaxy, other species did the same. Humanity, we did not understand. Neither did we, Marcus replied honestly. Until today, we thought we were alone, insignificant, just another species trying to survive. But we've learned something about ourselves. And we want you to understand something in return. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Sol will return to dormancy. We won't use this power to conquer or threaten. We're still the same humans we were yesterday, still learning, still growing. But now everyone knows what we've been guarding. If another threat like the Devourer ever appears, we'll be ready. Grant stepped beside Marcus. The architects left us one final message. They said that power without wisdom leads to extinction. They gave us this weapon not to rule, but to protect. We intend to honor that purpose. Sol began folding back into itself, weapons retracting, structures sinking back beneath the stellar surface. Within hours, it would look like an ordinary yellow star again. But no one in the galaxy would ever see it the same way. On the Vorton flagship, Kuilvrath watched Earth's sun dim to normal. His hands finally stopped trembling. How did we miss it? 3 million years, and we never noticed. Thraxis spoke quietly. Perhaps that was the point, sir. A weapon hidden so perfectly that even the endless hunger forgot it existed. Until the day humanity reminded the universe what fear truly means. Marcus stood in the bunker, feeling the genetic memory already beginning to fade back into dormancy. By tomorrow, he would remember this day but not understand it with the same clarity. Humanity would return to normal, carrying its secret in silence once again. But the galaxy had changed forever. The day Sol awakened, the day humanity revealed its true purpose, would echo through history as the moment the universe learned an important lesson. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Sometimes they're not weak. Sometimes they're just waiting. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.